GW, you're killing us. Or at least killing our wallets.
It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on your screens tonight. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. We're talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. Talking about Warhammer Fantasy, it's easy to learn the rules. Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington Show.
Welcome one and all, it's time for episode 149 of the Andy and Rem Show. It's a brand new thumbnail style, bringing brand new, never before seen viewing figures to this channel, guaranteed. That's the rule. As we remove the thumbnail, see that as usual I'm joined by Mr. Remington, who should be seated down here somewhere. Hello?
Hello, 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 hello.
How are you this week?
I'm okay. I'm better for seeing you, Andy.
Well, isn't that always the case?
Yes, it pretty much is, to be fair. And I love that thumbnail. Don't our skin look flawlessly nice and no Photoshop required?
It is a top-notch thumbnail. If you see any of the big YouTube channels, that's what you get. You have a big, shocked-looking face, and then people see that. They'll think, you know what? I'm going to click on that.
Yeah.
So we're on the bandwagon now, taking it to the next level. Eyeballs on this show where they belong.
Exactly. And have we got a feast for your eyes this week? Because Games Workshop didn't drop a clanger, they dropped a banger.
They dropped not only a bombshell, but an entire bombardment of teasers and upcoming release announcements in one fell swoop. So we're going to be sinking our fangs in. We're going to be allowing the juices, the succulent, tender juices, to be dribbling down our chins, and we're going to be deeply probing and analysing all of it. So let's get rolling, shall we? Immediately, without any further ado, because Lords of the Mortal Realms preview. So there's a big pile here. Where shall we start? That looks a bit 40k-ish, so we don't need to look at that. So,
well, Andy, while you're doing that, we should surely greet our guests. You should tell us in the comments where you are and what you're drinking and what you're doing.
Find out what you have to be drinking to enjoy this show. I would suggest any beverage would do, because there are no requirements for you to be inebriated to enjoy this show.
I've got a bulletproof coffee in here. And in about half an hour, I'm going to be flying.
I've got my usual hardcore beverage myself here.
What's that, Andy?
It is blackcurrant squash. Very weak blackcurrant squash.
Okay.
Staying nice and hydrated.
So, I would wash my brush in after using Mephiston Red. There you go.
We have got plenty to look at here. So there's a lot of videos on this page that we're going to be looking at. Silently, of course, but we are going to talk over them. So Lumineth, first of all. They haven't been on the scenes that long, but it seems like they're getting more love and attention than many of the other factions that have been around for years in Age of Sigmar. So,
Andy, isn't it crazy that 1 or 2 months ago, we had a Lumineth Realms Lords box set and book come out? So this must be the fastest jigging of the book, because obviously they've got new units now that weren't in the first book. So crazy, man.
it's difficult to keep up. So I'm sure people that bought it when it was first released haven't even got around to finishing their army yet. So let's have a look at the video. So, juicy, spicy Lumineth.
Wow. I love that.
Very sleek. It looks like a very long creature.
Yes, doesn't look like the silly kangaroos.
No, bolt thrower. I like that.
These guys have got funny hats on, haven't they?
Swords, I think that's a good sign. Not all with hammers anymore.
Yeah. Are they better than Swordsmaster of Hoth? He certainly is. She looks pretty cool. Or he. I love the blue. that light turquoise. Oh, that's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to see
Yeah.
some high quality pictures of some of these in a minute.
Oh, she looks great as well. I like her. She's sort of dancing on the light, fantastic.
I think the swords arguably push them to the next level rather than those big croquet hammers that they were armed with previously.
Right, okay. Well, it looks like, all in all, we've got a full complement of an array of miniatures to choose from now if you are a Luminous Realms player. And there's more, even more that wasn't shown on there as well. There's some different sort of heroes and.
So, let's have a look at this.
Mm.
Swords. Swords. Now, these are quite reminiscent of the old sword masters, as you mentioned, but
Do you think they look a bit top heavy because of the sort of helmets and long swords?
potentially, yes. The legs don't look that well armored, do they? It looks like they've got knee pads, but then more like fabric leg coverings.
Yeah.
There's triangular, scaly danglage from the shoulder and groinal regions as well.
I mean, you're not really an elf man, are you, Andy? Is that fair to say?
I've been more of a dwarf fan over the years, but these ones are very nice.
I love both, to be fair. And would you say you likey or dislikey?
I am more of a fan of these ones than I am of the previous batch, definitely. And I think it is just the swords.
Hmm.
I think it looks more graceful and sleek for an elf. They should have a weapon that just glides effortlessly through the air, not like a big bludgeoning, crude instrument.
Yes. I like this stance. It looks like a proper sort of a stance from a textbook of broadswords, doesn't it? He looks like he's ready for the onslaught.
One thing that I do think, though, looking at these, is wouldn't they look good all nicely ranked up in a big square? You'd have the big poses like ready to strike at the front, and you'd have them like in waiting with their swords maybe up at the back.
Yeah,
Definitely.
maybe. Yeah, I do miss the square bases for some things for sure.
I'm a fan of this actually, this bolt thrower. I'm
You,
not.
you love your siege weapons, don't you, Andy? You love
Yes, I like the bolt thrower. I like the fact that it's got plenty of ammo. I'm not that sure about their outfits. It looks like something you would see, like maybe someone running around at the Vatican wearing. Very, very holy looking, those outfits. I'm not entirely sure about them.
Yeah, I know what you mean, actually. And I was thinking some of the older miniatures, not really that old though, they had these huge bows, didn't they? So why would you want this bow instead of the sort of more portable one? It doesn't look that much more powerful, or is it?
One negative against this, though, that I would say, the shield on the front of it makes it look like it's been scratch built using old high elf bits. That shield shape is quite reminiscent of the old shields, even the ones that you'd get in the old box set with the single pose elves taking on the goblins. I remember it being that kind of shape. It looks like someone's got one of those and stuck it on the front of a large bow, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah,
I do like it overall, though. I like the fact they're showing how much ammo you've got.
Yes, that's good. That's good. So 2 per round. So 2, 4, 6, 8. So more than enough for any game of Sigmar.
I like that design choice. We've mentioned that recently quite a bit, haven't we, actually? Some of the ranged troops, you can actually see a large amount of ammo on them now, which I approve of. As we go down, we can see this terrain piece, and obviously magnificent looking floating waterfall island. It looks like it's propped up slightly by a bit of rock underneath. Would you be concerned about this falling over from what we've seen of it so far?
Well, I don't know. Is it held up through the fountain and the back thing, or is it
It
just
looks
the fountain?
like there's a thing under at the back there, which is holding it up in the middle perhaps, and then the fountain on one side. So it looks to me like potentially it could be toppling over. We'd have to get it out on the table or see it with a 360 view to have a full impression, though, I think. It is very nice, though. I can see people using this for a variety of purposes.
I love it. I want that in my garden.
would you make an actual flowing water version of it in your garden?
I would if I was sort of Mr. Miyagi and I didn't need to work for money. I could just sort of any time of day I could go out and tender that the little bonsai tree at the top. How I'd get up there, I don't know. I'll have to make some sort of a ladder. But I guess Lumineth can just float on clouds, can't they?
Stu says, is it weird that my favourite model from the range is the waterfall? I don't think that's weird at all, although I think they're all pretty nice.
Come on, that is weird because everybody knows that Stu is a chaos guy and he favours Nurgle. So, as soon as Stu gets his hands on this, those crystal blue waters will probably turn to putrid green.
Yeah,
Maybe that could be a thing.
I could easily see that being converted into a filthy, putrid Nurgle filth pustule fountain.
That would be funny, wouldn't it, as a model? And you have a greater demon of Nurgle just sat at the top of the fountain, and he's just completely defiled it. I
Well,
said it first, guys.
I could actually imagine this as it is, but with a lot of Nurglings sat on the steps urinating into it. Into the holy waters. Corrupting it. Defiling it. Okay, we've got some more to look at here. So we've got this long boy. It's a very long steed, this. But the guy riding on it, very, very reminiscent of the old High Elves, I think. And then we've got this little scene here. Okay, some people aren't that keen on this one. How do you feel about a miniature perched on another miniature's head? So the person underneath is really just the basing.
Well, Andy, this is not a new idea because, as we know, you can get old school halfling cavalry would be, young halflings stood on each other's shoulders to get to the right height. So yeah, it's not a new thing, but I love this. It looks pretty cool. Yeah, does it come as one model or are they separates? And I don't know.
I assume it just comes as one, and that you've got an enemy on the base. Is that an enemy?
An enema or an enemy?
No, I suppose maybe it is a friend actually, because you can see the same triangular danglage. So maybe it is a friend.
Well, I mean, these two. If you read the fluff, these two seem like the proteges of Tyrion and Teclis. So these could be the new Tyrion and Teclis for the future, I guess.
I think the
young Padawans.
problem I have with it, GW seem to be doing this a lot in the last few years. Tiny connection points. So often you'll have a bit of scroll attaching someone to a base, you'll have someone's hair attaching them to the base, you'll have people standing up on the very tip of a rock. In this instance, I can point with my mouse right here where the tip of the shoe is touching that tiny little bit on the back there. That is not a very strong connection. I wonder, the first time we're going to see one of the disaster images on one of the Facebook groups where this has snapped. It doesn't look really big enough for you to do any kind of magnetizing. Maybe when we get a 360 look at it, it'll be better. But that does look very, very feeble, that connection there. Let's see, William says the bottom guy is Tyrion's champion and the top one is Teclis Apprentice. So why is Teclis Apprentice standing atop Tyrion's champion heading into battle?
I mean, it's highly dangerous maneuver, that, isn't it? And she could easily get sliced in two, which will curtail her, her alchemic career. So I wouldn't advise that. I guess she's probably seen Teclis riding atop a bird, and she's trying to find her own little bird to jump on.
You know what it reminds me of, actually? Facebook is always recommending like fail compilation videos where people will be like skateboarding on railings or jumping off things and then they slip and land with some unfortunate body part directly on whatever was under them. And it looks like someone's headed for disaster here.
Yes, I've always found disaster awaits whenever I've chased birds, and if I ever tried to jump on one, well, it didn't end well. So I don't see I don't see why it should end well for her either. But I like the model.
Next, what do we make of this guy? He's got a sword, also got what looks like some kind of giant spanner or a wrench.
Well, very useful. Very, very useful, you know. They call that do you know, I don't know how I got to this, but I got into researching like, you know I've got into cryptocurrency, and you need to get these sort of wallets, these sort of digital wallets or standalone hard drive sort of wallets, right? And you put all your Bitcoin onto there, so it's offline. And they say, you've got all these passwords to remember and fail safe this and that in case it gets stolen or you get mugged or robbed. And they say nothing can really stop the $5 attack. And what's the $5 attack? It's a guy with a wrench saying, "Give me all your money." So that's what this guy's done here. He's got this. He's got like a lumineth wrench, and yeah, maybe that's his sort of insurance policy right there. That was a long story, wasn't it?
It could be that kind of tool, or it could be more of a grabber. Maybe the little pincers on the end kind of grabby inwards like that. That would be interesting. Grabbing your opponents at a safe distance. But I doubt it. I'm sure it's some kind of magic thing that just looks like a crude tool. Next. Now, this is a very elaborate lantern setup. And reading at long distance, so this guy's got some good eyesight. Full arm's length reading the scroll on that text. The text on that scroll.
I love this one. Really, really nice. I love that wizard's hat. Really cool, man.
Very pointy.
I mean, I don't think the lantern thing is very practical in the midst of a battle. Maybe if you're at the top of a citadel and you're climbing up them stairs, very handy. But on the battlefield, that thing's going to, get knocked out of your hand, and it'll probably get cracked and smashed.
Do you know what I'd be tempted to do with this model? Paint a tiny little, like, when you go to the opticians and there's an eye chart with letters that get smaller as it goes down. I would paint that on his scroll. Maybe model some little spectacles on him as well.
Like it, man. I like it. So what's this? Is this just your standard Lumineth wizard? Or is this a named character? Do you know?
I have no idea. Now, this is one that's got Remington written all over it. On a cloud. Clouding along. Thoughts.
Love it. This is monkey magic. Anyone who grew up in the 70s and 80s, you'll know what I'm talking about. Not the silly remake on Netflix. Old school, made in China, monkey magic. That is monkey whipping up a storm on his cloud there. I love it. How come no one's thought of that before? This is going to be the best selling one, in my opinion. I mean, perhaps they could have had a whole like regiment of like cloud riders.
Maybe they
right?
will.
Yeah, man.
If you buy enough of them.
I mean, look, given the choice, would you like to wear a giant bull helmet, right, and have a double-handed hammer, or fly on clouds like Monkey? I know which one I'd like to do better. There you go.
Got some interesting comments flying in here. So, some possible negative comments about the... Let's go back and have a look about this model. So, Owen says, I don't get the appeal of this model. Good luck putting this back in your case if you're a fan. Yep, if you're going to be putting it on your shelf, fine, nice display piece. If you ever have to take it anywhere, good luck. The only thing I can think of would be the same way I transported my Stormcast prosecutors, which was to put a magnet in their base and put them in a box, and then put foam on all sides of the box so that they can't really move or touch anything. But even then, it's a very elaborate setup for models like that, and you can't transport very many of them easily. So we've also got Simon, who says, not a fan of this style, and it's not the first time I've seen it. This sort of nonsense is what killed Malifaux for me. Lovely game, god-awful impractical models.
Yeah, Malifaux was pretty in, wasn't it? Like, I remember about 8 years, 5, 6 years ago, no?
It definitely seemed to be growing. Then I haven't heard too much about it at all recently. I don't know its current status. I assume it's still around. Let's see. Oh no, we've got Bad Squiddo Games in the house. And he says, I see you back to your usual viewing figures without me.
How very dare she? We have 23 watching now,
Yes.
including me and you.
I'm sure Annie would have liked to have joined us for this analysis, but she's on guinea pig watch because one of the guinea pigs just got back from an operation and is recovering from the anaesthetic, so needs to be monitored. So otherwise, she would be analysing this stuff with us, and I'm sure giving valuable input on cloud-based or precariously perched miniatures. So after the cloud, what have we got? We've got a standard bearer. That is a very large banner. It doesn't look that huge until you look down and see the size of the person carrying it. That is vast.
That's awesome, man. Have that at the back of your army. You can see for miles.
Very fancy. And it looks like, is that a figure there? Perhaps on against the sun? Interesting. Someone who's familiar with the Lumineth lore, tell me what's going on with that depiction on the banner there.
Yes, is it like the bicentennial man, naked with his arms aloft, trying to touch the sun?
Who knows? We
I
have
like it though.
a couple of people have been saying, you need to fix the notification thing. Didn't get one, so I am late. Yes. I don't really think there's much I can personally do about it, unfortunately. YouTube just decides not to notify people when this show is starting. So, if someone knows a way I could personally resolve that, I haven't been able to find anything in my options that would suggest that it shouldn't be happening. Next.
Well, just guys, remember, like, subscribe, bell button, all. Okay? Like, subscribe, bell button, all.
So, we've got... It's like it touches every point that a new batch of GW releases needs. You've got the tiny little connection point with a model perched, like diving into the air. You've got riding on the back of something ridiculous, in this case a cloud. You've got a new freakish mutant steed that somebody's riding on. And now you've got someone held aloft by lots of swirly danglage, which is a staple of most of the armies in Age of Sigmar. So what do we think of this one? A floating archer, floating on ribbons, with a large tail.
Let's have a look, shall we? Oh well, this one was previewed a little while ago. I like him. It's kind of cool. I don't think he really belongs in this army. I would like to see a faction that's unique to sort of these sort of mystical animals.
Floating squirrels.
Yeah, that could have been the Kernothe, when we saw that warband. I think maybe that, and keep the high elves as high elves, but they've obviously not gone that way. But yeah, it seems it is what it is. Yeah, it's cool though. Pretty cool. It looks like they've taken the idea for the Lord Celestant. Is it Lord Celestant Prime?
Celestant Prime, yes, is held up by a lot of swirling danglage.
Yeah, they've took that concept, haven't they? But yeah, do you think it's better than the Celestant Prime, Andy?
I think it's more characterful.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a selection of heads as well.
I always felt the Celestant Prime was a little bit on the bland side, personally.
Right. Well, how would you compare this then to the guy, oh, what's his name? Begins with M. He's like floating on the water, big wave.
Oh,
the Idoneth Deepkin.
Yeah, I know the one you mean. I think this is slightly less interesting than him, I think.
Yeah, I really like that model. The Eidolon of Mathalan. I think Mathalan, yes.
I prefer that to this.
Yeah, I do.
Overall, though, I do quite like I liked the look of this army, apart from the cow theme wasn't necessarily doing it for me, and the croquet hammers definitely were not doing it for me. But the fact that they've changed to swords, and they seem to be... The cows are still in there, but there's a few, like, for example, this guy. The hat there doesn't really have cow anywhere on it, as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
The helmet on the creature does, but not his personally. So there's a few of them that don't necessarily scream cow quite as much. These ones don't.
There's
This one definitely doesn't.
High elf fans are going to love these models, definitely. Yeah, I think maybe they've taken the feedback from the first lot. I haven't said that; they probably designed these a long time ago. But yeah, it looks like it's going to satisfy the true high elf fans. It ought to really, because these are pretty much these. If these come out in the heyday of 8th edition, they would have fitted just beautifully, wouldn't they? Right?
Indeed, they would. And it feels like when they were redoing the Warhammer Fantasy armies towards the end of its run, and they'd bring out a new army book for Empire, for example, and they gave them the Demigryph Knights, for example.
Yeah.
Bring in something that's a little bit wild and out there, but still down to earth enough so that it's in keeping with what was already in the army. And it feels like the High Elves evolving that way, rather than the first batch of the Lumineth, which I thought was a bit too far away, a bit too far removed. But a new book already, people aren't too pleased about that, but that's just the way it's going to be, I think, and it will push people probably towards more digital products. So you don't have a vast library of recently outdated books. Now we've got another video here. So, let's have a look. Before we go on, actually, Annie apparently struggled when watching this show due to it being very pixelated, and then finally realised there's a resolution button.
Yeah, well, I found that when I first opened it, it was at the lowest resolution, so I've changed it to HD 1080 pixels.
I think YouTube sets everything to the lowest possible, because then if people forget to change it, then it just saves them bandwidth, doesn't it? Okay, let's watch this video. See what we've got here in silence. Very spoopy. You can just imagine the sounds. Those who defy me will know only torment. Nagash. And now we've got Undead.
Oh. Trying to break free of those trains. That's a weird miniature, isn't it? That's a weird cross. Just different enough not to be compared to a well-known person who died on a cross as well. What do you think?
I think it's, compared to all the other Undead stuff that we're going to look at in a minute, I'm not that sold on this one. I think...
What happened to its mouth? Did it get melted and it's drooping down? Or it's like my dog when I'm cooking and he's just looking at the wonderful food I'm making, knowing that he probably won't get any.
Does it even have a lower jaw? Is that a lower jaw there?
Can you do an Andy zoom in?
I don't think we can really zoom in too much on this one. But that looks like there might be the lower jaw all the way down there. But my issue with the kind of night haunt look is actually the ghostly parts. I think they're too smooth and there's not enough going on when you get to the end of like the spiritual danglage.
Have you painted any though, Andy? Because I've painted a whole army, as you know, and they are nice to paint, dude.
I've painted ghost miniatures, but not necessarily these ones.
Yeah, just they're nice.
Aesthetically, they don't do it for me quite as much as some of the other Undead stuff, which we're going to look at momentarily, actually.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about the Night Haunt is that they're fairly easy to paint, but then you can take them to the next level. You know what I mean? Or you can get away with them without having a huge painting ability. So, yeah, I like that. They are quite brittle though, but at the same time, that's it's sort of very thin plastic, isn't it? So, but yeah, I think they're fabulous. I kind of regret selling my army now. But there you go.
We've got a new Stormcast hero, which is always exciting. I think you'll agree. And this one has an exciting pose. So let's see what Remington makes of this one. This is some sweet animation going on here. Look at that. Superhero pose. Drop down from the sky, punch the earth to support yourself.
And then he realizes he can't get up because he's not that young anymore.
That though. It is quite magnificent, and I think had they done more poses like this early on with Stormcast, I think people would have got behind them a bit more.
It does look like the earth is shattering around him as he landed. That's a proper like Marvel superhero landing, isn't it? When they land, they do
you can
that
even
pose.
see, look at the earth around his gauntlet there. It looks like the rocks have split.
I mean, I'm even more impressed, Andy, that he's kept his hair in place after actually falling from the heavens and landing like that. When what does he use in his hair? There must be some kind of spray or mousse going on there to keep it so.
Some kind of
fine.
celestial juices, I would suggest. But very nice. And if you look at some of the older Stormcast heroes, the poses were a lot more static. This guy, whether you like the pose or not, it's got character to it.
It has got. I mean, look at the blurb underneath, Andy. We'll have lots more on the Broken Realms narrative as it unfolds. Well, here's the narrative. These idiots dropped down from the sky so hard that they broke the earth. And that's why the realms have been broken, because these guys, can you imagine 1/2 ton of Sigmarite metal, thousands of them dropping from the sky like asteroids? It wouldn't be very good for the environment, would it?
One thing I do like, actually, when Games Workshop put motion into their miniatures, often that means leaping into the air with a toe touching the ground. But this guy, though, he's clearly got motion. He's recently been moving. He's only just stopped because he's landed. But look at all those connection points to the ground. A knee, a hand, and a fist all touching the base.
Yeah, there's no way you're going to break this model, is it? It's just so rooted, isn't it? The only thing that could possibly happen that's damage is if you tread on him.
The only thing that's going to break, possibly, are the dangly bits sticking up at the back of him.
Yeah, I can see that. But if you were to get angry at on a tabletop game and you just wanted to throw a miniature at someone, this would be the miniature you would throw, because it's pretty certain it's not going to take too much damage, right? It's a solid.
I have
choice.
dropped a Stormcast miniature on the floor before and almost stepped on it, but didn't. And it was fine. So
Yeah.
the plastic, even though it looks thin, it can usually stand up to a little bit of punishment. It's more you have to worry about crushing rather than dropping, generally. Okay, we've got another video. Let's wrap our eyeballs around this one. So, this is some more juicy undead goodness for you. A bit of a graveyard going on here. What stirs in the crypts? A grave danger. Now this guy has got a bit of an old school look about him.
Yeah, definitely.
Surrounded by Stormcast.
That's not very.
Oh, there we go.
fight.
Look at that. 360. Full on 360 rotation.
Let's go. They're so rusted, aren't they? It's like they've just come out of like a swamp.
The White King. Well, it's not a very original name, but look at that. It's like they've taken the old school look from some of the Undead range back in the day, and they've just modernized it. They haven't completely redesigned it or added cows to it or anything. They've just spiced it up a bit.
And they could have jazzed up the name, couldn't they? Couldn't have called him like Felanor, the White King, or something like that.
But you'll have to give him a name yourself.
Ah, okay.
Looks like, look at that shield design.
Yeah, it's kind of spooky. It goes beautifully with the the new. I'm going to say new skeletons. They're not new anymore, are they? But the design of the last bunch of skeletons they put out. Yeah. It's cool, man. Had I still had a Vampire Counts army, I would be tempted with this one. It goes well with the Black Knights as well, doesn't it, Andy? You know the Black Knight models?
It does, it
You
would
can
fit in
see
nicely
this
with
like
those. I assume this will be larger, but who's going to care about that because it's the White King, so it doesn't really matter if it's a little bit bigger. Let's see. Apparently Annie is a big fan of this, thinks it would fit in nicely with the black coach and all that. Yeah, all the old school Undead would go very nicely with this. And it makes me kind of wish that some of the more recent Undead releases, like the old Night Haunt, were a bit more in keeping with the old as well. It's kind of just making me think I wish that they'd just used this new fantastic design technology that they have to just update all the old armies rather than completely respinning them all in a totally different direction. Very nice. Now, this is one that's definitely got Remington written all over it. Another video. Let's have a look at this. This is for Underworld's Dire Chasm. And look at this. Green skins. Now, obviously, you've got quite a lot of Savage Orcs, unless you've got rid of them by now.
I did get rid of mine, unfortunately. I had the full complement of Savage Orcs actually. Yeah, these are wicked, man. Especially the Shaman, right? I mean, the thing is, Savage Orcs got like ridiculous in the first sort of set of competitions for Age of Sigmar. The Savage Orc special rule with the bow, where you have they fire 2 rounds per fire they fire 2 arrows per round, and you could just someone who won the competition had like 60 Savage Orc bowmen and just won from that. They just spammed it, so it kind of lost a bit of its charm for me when that started happening. And I think they could have brought out a few more variations with the Savage Orcs compared to other armies. So it's nice to see some new Savage Orc models come out because there really haven't been many. Of course, Savage Orcs first come out. They've been out a long time. You could get metal versions of them, but they were part of the Orcs and Goblins army, and then they kind of became their own thing with not too many new models. You had Savage Orc Boar Boys, a War Shaman, and then you just pretty much have the basic Savage Orc kit. When you could have, and out of that you could build 3 different models, right? You still can. You get the Savage Orc Bowman, Savage Orc. I don't know what you call them, not maniacs. Yeah, but they've basically got bone clubs. And then you could make the big stabber, which is my favourite model of all time. Remember that one, Andy? The
Sure
big
do.
stabber coming into your Star Drake. Of course you do. He still has nightmares about that. But that was pretty much it. I think you got a Savage Orc sort of champion character. So it's really nice to see some more in the range. But then again, if you've got a race of primitive orcs, how much variation can you really have? You know?
Well, you know what I like about these smaller scale skirmish and the kind of board games that they come out with? It allows them to bring out warbands or individual models, like mercenaries in the case of Necromunda, to kind of dip their toe into an area that's been previously neglected. So even if you're not going to get a full Savage Orc army, you've got this little warband to play with, and if you look at something like Necromunda, there's a couple of squat models in there. So then the GW higher ups can gauge the public's reaction to all them and look at the sales. So you know what? I think we need to do a full army of Savage Orcs now because this warband sold so well, and Mr. Remington was so glowing in his praise for them on that show. So I think
Nice.
good
But I
job.
mean, the other big difference, what that I liked about Savage Orcs when they had their own armies, that they went up to 2 wounds per model, didn't they? And that was kind of cool.
Let's see. Owen says, I miss my original greenskins. At least Savage Orcs didn't get deleted.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. I mean, Andy, if you were in charge of the design team and they said, right, we need some new Savage Orc models, what sort of things could you concoct from your vivid imagination? Or you guys in the audience, what would you like to see? We've got Savage Orc Bull Riders, we've got Savage Orc, like sort of brutey guys, archers.
You would think that they should be herding some huge, terrible monster into battle.
You would, but that's where GW shot themselves in the foot because Savage Orcs, their whole vibe is that they're monster hunters, right? So, you know, you could, yes, you're right. You could have had a big sort of Savage Orc mammothy thing, couldn't you? That'd be fun.
You certainly could. And if you think about goblins nudging squigs into battle with sticks, savage orcs could be pushing like gigantic, like mega squigs into battle.
Yeah, I mean, like Dicey Guy, hello, mate. He said, obviously, what about the Rogue Idol? Yeah, the Rogue Idol's wicked. So yeah, you've got the big giant Rogue Idol that's really expensive.
Okay, are you ready to look at Cursed City? Because this is where a lot
I
of the
am.
spicy stuff is.
Andy, I like it how you just scrolled past that other box set that's coming out. That's just like really boring.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some Stormcast in it. Maybe he's got some facial hair, so that's about the most exciting thing I can say about this.
It's like let's put some old models out in a repackaged box.
Yeah, it just looks the same as all the others to me. Anyway, Cursed City, this is where the juice is. So let's sink in those fangs. Here we go. Some new, extra spicy stuff in here. Are we actually going to show us models in this video? I don't even remember. Oh yeah, there we go. That's what the... It reminds me of the Vargle from what it could have turned into if they'd continued.
Dead Gamers in the house. Yo, 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 Dead Gamer. He's
Look at
the
all
G
this.
Man. This is awesome, man. Look at these guys. How could you not want this for Christmas, birthday, Easter, any kind of holiday or special event? I want this. It looks wicked, man. Look at that wolf guy. Look at him. He looks like Andy.
I think even if you were never going to play this, you'd be tempted to grab it just to paint the models in this.
I want it. I know that I will spend all year painting this. It will take me ages, but I will really enjoy this. That looked like a little a big Vargolf at the end as well.
Quite a decent number of miniatures in there. People are speculating it's going to be obscenely expensive though, so we'll find out. But let's go through the models here.
I agree with that, Andy, because the amount of models you're getting, I think we're looking at it's going to be more than 100 UK pounds.
So we've got someone that drapes an eagle, seemingly, across their shoulders. Okay.
Yeah. Now, do you know what, Andy? If she is that a female? If that model was what Stormcast were, I'd like it a lot better. You know, like more like knights and more human, more heroic looking. She is what Stormcast should have been for me.
You
But
think?
there you go.
I think if you had made Stormcasts more human, it would have brought more. Would have been a good path to moral ambiguity with them. Like they think they're doing the right thing, coming in and purging chaos, but actually there's a lot of collateral damage whenever the Stormcasts drop in from the heavens, like knocking people's houses down and all that. I don't know whether that's even something that comes up in the fluff, whether people resent the Stormcast for like bringing battles to their towns or what have you.
That could be something that happens in the future for sure. I mean, the Stormcast modeling was like just basically give us Space Marines, but in a fantasy thing, wasn't it? Right? Rather than these sort of more holyish knights that you've got here. She looks wicked, man. Love it.
And obviously, we're big fans of this. Clearly a witch hunter, updated, tall witch hunter, big hat, stake gun. Can you go wrong with that? I don't think
And
so.
this is you all over, isn't it? This model here, and it's me as well. I've got a halfling witch hunter. I've got an old school witch hunter. Why not bring the leader of the pack into the fold? This guy is on my hit list.
And again, attention to detail that GW put in recently. Extra stakes there. So it's not just a one hit and it's done. Extra ammo.
Is that Andy? His gun fires the stakes. How about that? And then he's got a hammer just to make sure it goes in. And look at those metal knee pads, that sort of metal shin pads. very useful for when the undead wolves are biting at your feet, and the overly sized belt as well. Love it.
And what about this guy?
And
So,
Andy, this is what the dwarves should have been.
the Cauldron
You know?
Overlords, you think they should have had
Yeah,
visible flesh from the beginning?
yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, keep the GW thing go. Keep the legacy going
It
of
looks
the
like
dwarves.
he's looks like he's got a metal beard, which is like part of a lower face mask. And then you can see the actual nose and the skin on the top of the head poking out, and an
It,
eyeball.
he's cool, man.
I think if they'd done that with the Cauldron Overlords, given them visible top half of the heads, but then made the beards metal, that could have been
Yeah,
really interesting.
yeah. I mean, look, the beard's optional, isn't it? You can paint it metal, or you could paint it hairy, right? I mean, what's on his back? Are they like scales?
It looks
Is it
like
like
some
a
kind of
big?
like piston powered thing, maybe for his weapon.
Right.
But yeah, I
That's
think when the Cauldron Overlords came out, I think we both agreed that they needed some kind of organic pokage going on. It's just pure armor. It's the same with the Stormcast when they first hit. You need something to give them a bit more life to them. So whether that was beards poking out or visible faces, just something extra, rather than just being a walking suit of armor. And this is a very nice model. Next one, I think we already looked at this one with this not quite Rapunzel length hair, but it reminds me of the same kind of style of hair there.
oh
And
yeah,
of
we love
course,
it.
perched on a rock, because that's the only way to fire a bow.
Amazing. This is what Wood Elves should have been, like rebranded Wood Elves, like that. Wicked.
We already saw that one previously. And this one, that's a decent sized sword there.
People are loving this one, Andy. People are absolutely loving it. I've been looking in the forums. It's like a Kislevite sort of Kosovar, is it? Like sort of Cossack, right? Love it.
Nice pistol. Interesting hairstyle.
You could have him in 40k, couldn't you, as well?
There
Without
definitely is conversion possibility there. Now this, look at that beard.
is that a beard or is it a chin?
It looks like a very long beard. I'm going to assume that's what it is.
Wow. I mean, he would look better with. I mean, just for his own vanity's sake, if he had some sort of wizard's hat on, because he does look rather exposed there with that sort of slap head. But I think this guy, is he meant to be sort of on the good side then, or is he like a
I
necromancer?
think these are the heroes that we're looking at here.
Right. He's like, I don't know. Maybe he could be like Balthazar Gelt, right?
Is that, he's got a book inside one of his sleeves, it looks like there. And then he's holding the other book. Very interesting model. I'd like to see that on the 360. Next. So this is looking a little bit, the shoulders and the back area are looking a little bit luminethy on this one. Colour scheme they've used maybe on that bit of back, not particularly
Yeah.
armament, kind of decoration, is it?
I mean, what is that on her back? It's like a little tent, isn't it, on her back? Weird. I mean, it's not really even a good umbrella in case it rains because it's not going over her head. But she looks kind of like a fantasy sister of Sigmar, doesn't she? Like
Be
sister of
cool to
battle.
me.
Yeah.
Now, what about this? This. I think that this is definitely kind of a reference to some of the really old school ogres. Because that exact kind of fist mounted hook spike weapon, that was one of the options that you had on the old ogres. The other weapon is also very, very similar looking to one that you would get with the old metal ogres. The armor looks very similar. So there's a nice sprinkling of old school in among the new design
Yeah. When you
style.
when you say when you say metal ogres, you mean Marauder miniatures, don't you? Citadel Marauder miniature ogres.
Yeah, the really old one.
Yeah, definitely. I'll go with you with that. 1987 models.
So nice throwback there, I would suggest. And now we've got the undead. So, bats. Bats, if we think about fell bats, some would say the worst models Games Workshop have ever produced. They were really big and clunky and horrible looking. But these bat swarms, these new bat swarms, obviously the old ones looked a bit silly as well. Not as bad as the fell bats, but the old bat swarms. And they've obviously done away with the flying stands now that old bats used to have. Everything has to be perched, either touching another bat or touching a bit of pillar. But it's not done in a silly way here. I think it looks quite natural, these bats.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone's watching this on their phone, they probably won't be able to see it. I'd love it if you could zoom in a bit more because we can't quite see their face detail. But yeah, they definitely look way better than the old ones, which look like they were designed by a 10-year-old.
If people want to see lovely embiggened versions of all these images, I'm sure they can personally wander over to the Warhammer community site after the show and have a look. But very nice bats. Now we've got rats as well, with skulls visible and ribs visible, so dead rats.
Yeah, like a rat swarm, right?
Yeah, like
Undead.
it's a mini rat swarm.
These are undead rats, Andy. Look at the
Yes.
faces. They're like skull. I mean, it's like Games Workshop maybe said, look, we're not going to do a new Vampire Counts army, but what we'll do, we'll put a bunch of models and we'll put them into a board game instead. Which is that good or bad? It's better than nothing.
And again, if there's a huge appetite for them, then maybe they'll make the transition into an army. Because it would only get more sales for the models, you would think, as time goes on.
Yeah, this guy is wicked. It looks like sort of middle-age, sort of Russian infantry. I mean, look at that size of the axe. What do you even call that? Is it? It's not a halberd, is it? What is it? Just a giant battle axe?
There might be a fancy name for an extra large axe. I don't know what it is. But the extra large beards as well, extra long
Yeah.
anyway. Long stringy beards, not like nice thick full dwarven beards.
So you get a couple of these, don't you? And you get a bunch of the other. These are so good, man. They're wicked.
Skeletons. Now that one on the right, that skeleton, in fact both of them really, old school flat pose from back in the day when it was just much easier to create models that were kind of flat, so you would often have a space marine with like his gun like that, like flat against him, against his profile.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. These are so good. These are like, the skeletons, aren't they? That you can already get, but they're even better. And they just look so epic, like everything's sort of blowing in the wind.
I think there's a temptation when you're making skeletons to give them kind of angry skull faces, which obviously makes no sense because skeletons can't make face expressions. But I think these ones look pretty neutral, which is what you want. You want them to look like empty and then use like their pose and their weaponry to deliver the threat.
Absolutely. Andy, you put these two next to the the Ossiarch bone reapers, right?
Yes.
These are just head and shoulders above, in my opinion. These look any true fantasy fan's going to be like, these look so Conan the Barbarian, right?
Yeah, everything in this box so far is dialed down compared to the over-the-top nature of everything else in the Age of Sigmar universe. This is much closer to the old world, all this stuff.
It's so good. I mean, those shields are phenomenal. Love them.
Even more skeletons, different armaments for them. And then, these ones definitely caught everyone's eye. Zombies. But, GW can't just release a zombie, because that's been done. So they'll give us a zombie with its grave and surrounding earth on its back. Now, I don't think I've ever seen that done before. I've seen undead creatures carrying around things on their back. I don't think I've ever seen a zombie carrying its grave around.
No, I mean, it's sort of like an unholy strength, isn't it? That they're given. They're given this sort of supernatural strength to rise out of the grave and even lift up the very gravestone that's pinning them down. What a cool concept. And look at the one on the top right as well. She looks kind of a bit more voodoo, doesn't she? Like, from Live and Let Die vibe. If anyone's wondering about the giant battle axe conundrum, Stu Gibson, as usual, has come with the goods here. He's called it a Bardesh or Bardiche.
Nice.
So that, yeah, here you go. Look, even Bad Squid Games is saying these models are amazing, and yeah, so they
I
must
think
be.
it looks like they're struggling, which I think is nice. Because it wouldn't be easy, even for an undead creature, to be carrying around something of that weight. And it's not a natural walking position they're in, which works because they're dead. And you can see the roots that are growing around them as well. So they do look like they've just crawled up from the earth, and you could paint them up like really dirty if you wanted them to look fresh as well. And some different angles. And I don't know if they're different miniatures entirely, or just different paint jobs. So obviously, very, very tasty. All this stuff. And what's this? Even more. What's going on here?
I know,
So,
Andy. So this is like the main baddie. This is the main dude.
2 wolf heads, one dangling off each shoulder. Chipped sword, which is usually what swords look like when you like cut them off the sprue wrong, but this one's actually intentional. Very nice. There's lots of animal danglage going on in this release. More animals. We've got the bird perched atop the sky here.
I mean, Andy, wouldn't it be good if that wolf character wasn't entirely bad? If he had some kind of tragic story that he could kind of empathize with him, so it's not just like, yeah, the good witch hunter versus the evil wolf king. Maybe, I love that. I want some moral ambiguity. We're all adults here, aren't we? Pretty much.
They better be in the audience, otherwise they're exposed to some terrible filth on this show.
Yeah, these are just, I can't pick out a rubbish figure yet. I'm trying, believe me, but I can't. So
This
good.
this skeleton, I think, is the consistency in the kind of the sway of the danglage here, all pointing off in that direction. It just, you can almost hear the breeze as it's just like put the
Yeah.
halberd into the earth, and it's like just.
Yes, it's like an empty breeze, isn't it? It's like the soulless breeze. It's like a terrifying empty breeze. But speaking of terrifying, look at the next one up.
Okay, do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of a cross between a Vargulf and, have you played any of the Fallout games? The PC or console games?
No, I haven't. What, are they any good?
Yes, it looks a little bit like a death claw from one of those. They're like these big, kind of stalking, hunching, really tall creatures with gigantic claw hands. And it reminds me of one of those mixed with a Vargulf. Very nice.
He looks like, you know what I mean? He could be. I mean, I know you're not really a huggy, kissy person, Andy, but he looks like maybe he's trying to give you a cuddle.
I don't think you'd want a cuddle from this thing.
You would if you were cold. I mean, look, he's got lots of fur. Might be quite nice if you were really cold, right? It looks like he's got, what's that? Is that like a kebab on a skewer in the ground?
It looks like just a head on a stick.
Ah,
I
I
don't
see.
know. I don't know whether the creature's got anything to do with that.
I'm not sure about his face. It looks a bit silly. Face looks like it's a mask.
It looks kind of like a bat's face, doesn't it? A bat's face embedded in the rest of the creature.
Yeah, this one I'm not sure about, but if it is a Vargolf, I think we've been waiting. Well, Vampire Counts Undead players, they've been waiting for a remodeling of a Vargolf, haven't they, for a very, very, very long time.
William says it's a rat.
It's a rat.
I think it looks very bat-like in the face department and very bird-like in the foot department. It's got a lot of different things going on. Very strange creature. Next, we've got, I think we've looked at this one before, haven't we? This big kind of grave digger looking character with the weird
Did I say Vargeist? I said Vargeist, didn't I? I meant Vargolf. Yes, I meant Vargolf. Yeah, this guy, he's so good. It reminds me of a character in one of the Spanish director's films, Pan's Labyrinth. You ever seen Pan's Labyrinth?
I have
Oh,
not, but
oh,
it's on the
and
list. It's
you've
on the
got to
list.
watch that, dude. Watch it late at night with the lights off. It's so freaky, but amazing. It's got a lot of heart to it. But yeah, this looks like straight out of the mind of the director of that film, whose name escapes me, but he's brilliant.
Now, what about these creatures? They're all pillar perchers.
Yeah, very athletic. Is it male or female or neither?
I don't think it
Or
really matters.
no.
But there's a few different ones, all perched on these bits of scenery. Oh well, this one's got slightly smaller perch to stand on, so not quite as impressive as that or that.
I mean, these models look more agile than like sort of Sisters of Slaughter, don't they? These could really get the jump on those models with their, with those moves. They could walk up walls, everything.
Yeah, there are occasions where I'm not necessarily a fan of a piece of terrain on the base that's bigger than the model itself, but I think it works nicely with these. It doesn't overshadow them too much.
Yeah. Now you've seen quite a few of these baddies, Andy, and you've seen the goodies in inverted commas. Which one would you want to be? Which one would you feel safe playing the character of and entering this cursed city?
Maybe the ogre.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, it's more flesh for these undead creatures to feast on, isn't it?
Possibly the witch hunter then. Can't go too far wrong with a stake gun, can you?
Yeah, I think the witch hunter looks like the most experienced. He's going to have the most little gadgets and things up his sleeve and hidden in his tights and stuff to deal with anything.
So we're going to go through what's in the box here, and then we'll get the audience to guess what the price is going to be. If anyone already knows the price, then don't let us know until some people have guessed. So,
I mean, you get so much,
8
man.
heroes, rulebook and quest book, 42 hostile creatures, just a smattering of them there, 10 objective markers, with different kinds of death danglage going on, war scrolls book, counters and tokens, 28 dice, which is a lot of dice, board tiles, gateways, and leech gates, secret envelope, that's got to be worth at least £20 on its own, plus all the cards you need to play. So, based on all that, how much do people think it's going to cost? Drop the prices in the comments, and then
I mean, let's just count the models you get, Andy. You get 8 characters. Bear in mind, at GW prices, one of those characters would cost what, at least £14,
yeah,
$20, right?
usually a little individual hero in a little blister pack would be about £15 for one, usually. And each one of these models could easily be released as one of those. And there's 50 of them. And if we say, well, some of the undead ones are more like rank and file troops. So if we say there's going to be at least probably about 20 in there that you would think, yeah, I could buy that as an individual model. And the other 30 are more like your basic troops.
I mean, just on that calculation alone, Andy, you're looking at over £200. Plus the actual board game itself. You got these lovely objective markers as well.
There's an
Which,
accompanying novel by the looks of things as well.
but that's separate though, right? That's separate, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure that doesn't come with it.
Right.
So let's have a look at this video. Then we'll go to people's guesses. So this is a bit of a teaser for something, which is clearly, it's got a chaos symbol on its chest, some kind of big demon monster. That it's like dead chaos warrior on its base.
Oh, what's this, Andy? Is this
The first prince rises.
Oh,
Who's the first prince?
it can only be Be'lakor.
The ultimate demon prince.
Yes, he had a big to do with the end times, didn't he? And all that went on during that as well. So it seems like he somehow survived the dying of the old world, and he's back again. So that's quite exciting, isn't it?
That'll be something to look out for over the next few weeks. So, the price for the Cursed City, Authentic Studio says £100 at least. I think definitely more than that. Dicey Guy says $1 million. I don't think it'll be that high. William, £125. Bad Squiddo, 120. Roshi, 180. Owen, 170. Bad Squiddo then amends, and he being a bit indecisive there, 140. Simon is not really being nailed down to a particular price, 100 to 150. So Remington has said £149.
Yeah, or $200 American dollars. I just don't. I can't see them going over £200. No way. Yeah, I mean you never know, but yeah, £149, maybe £170 maximum. Owen Lee said £170, but then of course, if you're getting it a little bit of a discount, if you manage to get 20% off, that then brings it down to the realms of sort of 149.
They do often surprise us with how high they're willing to go on prices for their products. So I feel like it's got 140 around there written all over it. But would I be surprised if it's higher? Not at all. If it's any lower than that, I would say we're looking at very good value based on all the different models in there that they could easily sell individually.
I mean, I think this is a big release for them. And with the government, I mean, we're talking UK at the minute, with the government's announcement yesterday that shops are going to be opening after Easter, I think they might time this with after our Easter holidays when the shops open again. What do you think? Do you think it'll be released before Easter?
I think it would be risky trying to time anything based on the current restrictions that seem to jump back and forth quite frequently. So I don't think they'll be keeping that in mind too much. It could be potentially a nice bonus if all the shops are allowed to open just as they have a big release. I don't think they'll be counting on that happening. So that's the end of that article. So that was a lot of juicy, spicy goodness there. When will GW learn to spread all their releases over a few weeks to give us more topic? But we have got plenty of other industry things to talk about in following weeks, so don't fret.
It's brilliant. I mean, Andy, I've not been able to pin you down very well. I mean, what are you saying? Are you saying this? Are you going to get it?
Am I going to buy it? That's a tricky one. Do you know what? I think I would like to own a lot of the models in it. I don't know whether I would be that interested in owning the entire package. I'd like to own this guy, actually. This White King. I think it's much more likely I would buy this than the Cursed City. Unless the Cursed City was comically underpriced compared to everyone's predictions. But it's definitely a fine assortment of miniatures. And I am a big fan of Undead.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even mind owning this guy, to be honest, if I was paying any attention to my Stormcast. I think I've already got plenty of heroes for that army. What about you? Is it going to be on your shelf? Cursed City?
Cursed City, I'm going to say yes, it is.
Along with the waterfall?
I don't know. You know, do I just get this waterfall on its own? No, I think I'm going to go with the Cursed City, I think, yeah. I think if I'm going to get a new army, it's going to be Mortal Slanesh, because they look so good. And they've got that sort of Middle Eastern vibe to them, which is obviously right up my tree. So, yeah, I think if I was to get anything new, it would be either both Cursed City and Slanesh, or just Cursed City.
Okay, so people comment in the chat right now, will you be buying Cursed City? Will you be buying the new waterfall or any of the other stuff we've just been talking about? Post in there now which of those you're definitely going to buy. And while you're doing that, I'll remind people while we're at the peak of the show, for the viewership, that What the Hell Is That has now changed to an end of the show festivity rather than middle of the show. So instead of actually deciding the winner on the show itself, during the end of the show, as we're going off the air, you'll see the image, you'll be able to analyse it, and then in the video comments after the show, not in the chat, in the actual comments section, you'll be able to put your answers in there, for the entire week following the show, and the first person to get it right will be the winner. I can tell you that last week's doesn't have a winner yet, so I'm going to leave that open. So as soon as someone does get that right, on the episode immediately after that, we'll then reveal the solution and announce the winner of that one. And there'll be a fresh one at the end of this episode as well. So you want to stay tuned all the way to the end for that chance to win. What the hell is that? Which often has prizes as well. Can't make any prize promises right now, but there have been some. Keep your eyes peeled for that. Roshi says instant buy for Cursed City. William definitely getting Cursed City. Authentic Studio. It would be great to paint the minis, but wouldn't play the game.
Hey, well, how do you know it might be a great game? Or do you think it's just going to be a little dungeon crawl vibe?
It could still be good, even if it's a little dungeon crawl vibe. Now,
they could make a video game out of it, right? Or like a Netflix series. How about that?
speaking of things that should have a Netflix series, Remington's Financial Voyage.
Oh my god.
That's a bit of a red dip we're looking at here.
We're looking at a 3-month chart then, and look, Games Workshop is not immune to the ebbs and flows of the stock market or the news. In fact, the general news. Anyway, stocks took a complete bloodbath this week, especially, but pretty much all of last week as well. And what with announcements of a possible light at the end of the tunnel, people getting inoculations now, maybe investors selling Games Workshop because it's been seen as a stay-at-home stock, even though we know it's not. It's something we live and breathe all the time.
When did you cash out on this little chart?
Well, I didn't. Yeah, I cashed out for a reason, because I saw a better opportunity. So I think that's a good reason to cash out, and not to just have them for sentimental value.
But if we look at the moment that you cashed out, and then we compare that to what happened, so where is that? Where's your dot?
It's very hard to know when the top is, and I cashed out, I think, at 115, but the 115 pounds.
Did you cash out somewhere just before the peak?
Yeah, the peak was 117 pounds.
So you cash out here, it continues to go up for a little while, but then there's a drop off when you announce that you've cashed out. Because people watching this show, the word gets out that Remington is off the sinking ship like a rat. It's time for everyone else to leave. Is that the story?
Yeah, well then it went below 100, and now it's below 100, which is a decent point to buy at. I mean, I originally bought at £50 a share this time last year, and it went all the way down during the March COVID crash. It went down to £35 a share, and that would have been the ultimate time to buy it, because if you'd have bought it then and held on until January, you would have seen like a 300% return.
So it's reached a certain level, and it's like fluctuating around this green line now. So
so you're looking at the year chart now. That's for the year. So it is a steady upwards rise.
It looks like it's kind of leveling out though around this sort of area.
It is. Some people call this a market correction, that it's just going back to its natural upwards line, because there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the company. In fact, the company is fantastic. It's growing, making loads of money. So sooner or later, the fundamentals will catch up, and I think it will rise again. So there, Games Workshop's still doing well, but it's not immune to the ebbs and flow of the market. Look at that beautiful picture, Andy.
Yes, there's some Cursed City artwork on another Warhammer Community article here. So I'll have a quick look at this. We don't want to have too much of a look. Two-headed wolf, it seems, which is possibly what is on this guy's shoulders. So a quick look through this artwork, because we don't have time for a really extended look here. Small child in fear at the skeletons.
Where's his parents? That's shocking. Why
I think that's probably a parent there, dead. Killed by a skeleton, I imagine. Someone else running. Maybe that's one of the parents fleeing, leaving the child for the skeletons. Wouldn't that be a fun story?
It's where you seeing this stuff, Andy? They're asking in the chat.
This is on the Warhammer Community website.
Right. Okay. Fantastic.
So lots of spicy artwork there. Now, Rumour Engine. It's a hoof. Can we even bother speculating on this? Is there anything to say about this? It's just a hoof with a bit of scar tissue on the leg. Some nice fetlock action going on there. Other than that, what could you really say about it? It's a horse, probably. Who does it belong to? We don't
Uh,
know.
is it an evil horse or is it a good horse?
I
If
think
it's
it's
an
going to be an
horse,
evil horse because it looks like it's got some scars on there. So that's usually a sign of evil, isn't it?
I'm going to say it's a Centaur. That'd be good, wouldn't it? We need new Centaur models for the Beastmen. That would be pretty cool, but I'm not 100%. Could be Kernothi, couldn't it?
I
That'd be
think it's
cool.
definitely just a boring old horse. Nothing interesting going on whatsoever.
Okay.
Now, Middle Earth, there's some new stuff here. What do you make of these?
Easterling. Like an Easterling sort of assassin, right?
A few of
That's
them.
pretty cool.
So you're quite up on your Middle Earth stuff in general, aren't you?
Well, I think The Hobbit was one of the first books I ever read.
Well, do you know
And
what these guys are?
no.
Well,
I used to read Lord of the Rings in bed, and it used to send me to sleep after 3 pages.
we'll
So
send you off to do some Middle Earth research, and then next week we'll come back to these guys. So next, now, last week, I believe it was, we were looking at some classic Beastmen, and someone brought my attention to this post from an Old Hammer Facebook group, where someone had posted their freshly painted projects, which are classic Beastmen, Camelman and the Pigman. So there are
what
still,
are these the actual miniatures?
I believe so, there's still people out there painting these old classic Beastmen. And
These are great. They're
I
really,
said I wanted to
really
see
cool.
if anyone was in possession of them. So here you go.
Look at that, Andy. You see, our fan base is phenomenal. You guys in the chat, you guys watching now, anyone who's watching this, after we put it out, phenomenal. You're not going to get another channel that can delve into the very depths of Games Workshop history like the people on this channel. Amazing, man. You're not going to get this kind of research into the old school Warhammer stuff on any other channel. No chance.
Yeah, so this
Wicked.
is a new segment that we're going to have every week with Old School Beastman Watch. So if you see any old school Beastmen out there in the wild, on any of the social medias or out there in the flesh maybe, when such a thing is possible, send us pictures or direct us towards those posts and we'll have a look at them. Because they're very interesting and
You know what I like about Beastman, Andy? You kind of feel a little bit sorry for him, don't you? Do you know what I mean? There's a little bit of a comedy factor there.
I feel a bit sorry for these two, looking at their heads.
But look, they're making the best of it, you know? They're
That's all
making the
you
best
can
out
do,
of a
really.
bad situation there.
Indeed. And then finally, last thing to look at, I've been painting away. I don't know about you, and you can see all the zombies in the background that I'd already painted previously, but I've done the 6 survivors from Walking Dead All Out War board game. All the
Flipping heck,
survivors are done
Andy,
now.
you've been on fire. I mean, I must say, these gonna rank up in your top 5 paint jobs ever. Each model you've painted there has got so much character. I mean, look at the detail on that green dress.
Thing is, though,
Looks
it's
like
been such a simple paint job on all of these, so I am actually going to make a video at some point soon with like a really clickbaity title, something like "How to Paint Board Game Miniatures Fast," with like a picture of a stopwatch and a painted miniature in the thumbnail, something like that. I think that could get some quite good viewers.
I mean, the woman in the green dress there, she's going to haunt me, Andy, because she looks a bit like my old head teacher, Mrs. Sutcliffe, from my old primary school.
Well, there you go. Did she have blood on her hands?
I don't think so. She used to read us stories while we sat on the floor. One day there was this horrific smell, and one of the kids had soiled himself. So yeah, that was a memorabilia.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure all these zombies have quite a horrific smell to them as well, so not totally unrelated. And they're a
What?
lot. They're a lot of fun to paint actually. These because with them being there's no assembly required. They just all come like this.
Right.
And the detail, while it's present, it's not. It's more like the detail is folds rather than like extra pouches and accessories on things. So there is detail, but it's not things that you necessarily have to paint a different color. So if you're a fan of like dry brushing or contrast paints, then they would be very useful for these miniatures.
I mean, Andy, what? I've got two things. What's with the cowboy at the front? What's that all about?
What's with the cowboy at the front? Those two right in the center there are the two iconic Walking Dead characters.
Oh, oh, okay. I recognise them now. So they're like not zombies, and the guys at the back are the zombies.
Yeah, so the ones that are not zombies, I've given them the little black outline around their base, so that they stand out a bit more when the game's in full swing. Whereas the zombies are more just like blending in with the terrain with just the grey bases.
Yeah, Andy. So, like, not to put a dampener on things, but I always say faces, bases, shields, right? And what's
It,
going on with the bases? Because the bases are letting these down at the minute.
I didn't want to add any texture to the bases at all because I looked at the playing mat. In fact, let's see if I can get it out of the box now and I'll show it you. So, the playing mat that comes with this game is just a pretty standard kind of concretey kind of look. So I've actually tried to imitate it. So let's show it you there. There you go. Look at that. It's just grey with kind of white scuffs on it. So that's how I've done their bases to match this. So that's the thinking behind it.
Right. Okay.
If I was
Yeah,
just
fair
if
play.
I was
Yeah.
painting these as like wargaming pieces or display, then I would do something fancy with the bases. But it's a board game, and I think just making them match the board is a good move. So that's
Right.
the thinking there.
What's the idea in the board game? Have you just got to survive, or you've got to kill as many zombies as you can?
Well, you're in opposing teams, and you're trying to meet various objectives in the battlefield while the zombies are around. So I haven't finished reading the rulebook yet, but there's things like if you shoot your gun, it's going to make noise, so the zombies are going to become more agitated and move towards you and that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to giving that a try at some point soon, now that all the models are painted. And
So that's all the models you get in the box. Then that's it.
yes, there's about 1 billion other models available though, but this is how obviously they get you with these board games, with all the expansions, especially if you're a fan of either the comics or the TV series, because you'll have a look on the website and say, hey, I know that character, I'm going to get the booster pack with them in it. And then I'm sure it's very easy to get carried away and spend a lot of money.
Is this Warlord Games?
This is Mantic.
Mantic put this out, right? Okay.
Yeah, so
how new is this then?
they're releasing new stuff all the time for it, but I think the actual game itself is a few years now.
Right. Okay. Nice.
But I think there's a couple of really nice zombies actually in some of the booster packs as well that I've been looking at. So I feel like I'm going to have to get some more just so I can paint them for a guide on painting board game miniatures quickly.
So they got basically the IP for Walking Dead.
Yes, based on the comics. So the characters will look like their comic counterparts rather than the TV series.
Ah.
But a lot of the characters are the same though. Let's see. Simon says 2-player game with the zombies as a moving hazard. Yes. Simon says, I agree about basing to match the terrain they're being used on. And Annie is a fan of the base simplicity. Roshi says clear bases are the way to go for board games. That's another good point there. So if it's like a tile-based board game, I think clear has a lot of advantages because sometimes you'll have certain tiles on the board that have some kind of symbol on them or text, something that's supposed to show you what that square signifies. So it's quite handy to have a clear base.
I'm down with clear bases. That's great, man. Especially if you've got some nice tile underneath you. Yeah.
And it seems like you've not painted anything this week. What's going on? You're slacking.
No, I've been a bit slow this week, I suppose. But I am almost halfway through my Blood Bowl necromantic. What are they called? Necromantic horror Blood Bowl. The Wolfenberg Crypt Stealers. Yeah, I'm just. I think I've painted 4, and I'm painting the next 3 now. So I'll have some pictures for you all. So I'm halfway through painting my first ever Blood Bowl team. And yeah, once they're done, I've got a mountain of Mortal Realms magazines to go through. So if you didn't know, a couple of months ago I subscribed to Mortal Realms. So every month I get loads of miniatures Games Workshop don't want anymore. Trying to get rid of. And yeah, it's kind of nice, really. So yeah, getting some juicy content from that.
Speaking of juicy content, don't forget to tune in next week and the week after and the week after that, because it's going to be a non-stop tidal wave of juicy content delivered directly to your face through the internet from this channel. So there's still time for What the Hell Is That this week, which we're going to close the show on again. Last week's is still open as well if you want to go back and check out the end of that video and guess in those video comments. This one, guess in the comments. First person to get it right, I'll let them know that they've got it right, so people can stop guessing probably. And then we'll reveal on next week's show if someone's guessed either of them by then. So that will close the show. So do you have any parting words for the audience before we go, Mr. Remington?
Yeah, just want to thank everyone for coming. It's wonderful to have such a loyal audience, and I hope you're enjoying the content. Andy works really hard to make this happen, and you know, all hail to the Andy. Thank you, Andy.
Those are some fine words there. So I'm going to add, first of all, I'll give a special personal thanks to the following patrons who have pledged to the level to receive a personal thanks. Extra special thanks to Graham, Roshi, Kim, John, Eric, Barbara, and Guy. All of you, extra special, spicy thanks. Patreon supporters, keep this channel alive. And with that, don't forget to check out all the links, subscribe, and all that malarkey. Discord server, Facebook group, all that good stuff. All that remains to be said, other than hang around for What the Hell Is That, is good night out there. Whatever you
What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Is it a chaos dwarf or a vampire bear? Oh, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? Oh, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? Only Andy and Remington, Andy and Remy, Andy and Remington know. What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Is it Sigmar's beard or Neferata's hat? Oh, what the hell is that? Oh, what the hell is that? Is it a mangled squig or a sorcerer's rat? Only Andy and Remington, Andy and Remy, Andy and Remington know.